Even after the earth shook, after the final giants had fallen in the shadow of Olympus, a quiet unrest lingered across the ancient world. The Olympian gods had triumphed, cementing their dominion over heaven and earth. Yet there was a tension they couldn't escape, a silent storm on the horizon. The Gigantomachy, the war between gods and giants, had ended, but the universe itself seemed to echo with unresolved grudges and buried rivalries. As the gods reigned from Mount Olympus, new conflicts simmered below, not among the heavens, but in the world of mortals. A world on the edge of a war like none before. This conflict would not involve towering titans or cosmic monsters, but it would bring together heroes and armies from across the earth. It would test not only men, but also the gods themselves. And it would start, not with blood, but with love, betrayal, and a beauty that would ignite an unquenchable flame. The kingdoms of Greece and Troy would face each other in a war that would span a decade, drawing in mortals and gods alike, forever changing the course of history. This was the Trojan War, a tale of heroism and tragedy, of divine intervention and human ambition. Our story begins with the key players, the figures whose names would live on for centuries. In Greece, there was Agamemnon, the powerful king of Mycenae, whose desire for glory knew no bounds. Beside him, his brother, Menelaus, king of Sparta, wronged and vengeful, determined to reclaim his wife Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world. Helen was more than just a queen. Her beauty was legendary, said to rival that of the gods themselves, and she was rumored to be the daughter of Zeus. Her abduction by Paris, prince of Troy, set in motion a conflict that would bring ruin and chaos to both lands. The Greek ranks included some of the greatest heroes to ever walk the earth. Achilles, the son of a mortal king and the sea nymph Thetis, stood among them. His might was unmatched, his courage renowned, and his lust for glory was boundless. Achilles' strength in battle was legendary, but so was his pride, a trait that would shape his destiny in the war to come. There was also Odysseus, the cunning king of Ithaca, whose wit was as sharp as any weapon. While others fought with spears and swords, Odysseus wielded strategy, able to outthink even the gods themselves. Ajax, the giant among men, joined them with his immense strength, and Diomedes, favored by Athena, brought unmatched bravery and loyalty to the Greek cause. Across the Aegean Sea, in the fortified city of Troy, another side prepared for battle. King Priam, ruler of Troy, was a wise and compassionate king, but fate had dealt him a cruel hand. His son, Paris, had taken Helen from Menelaus, igniting the wrath of all Greece. Paris, young and charming, had been seduced by Aphrodite's promise, choosing love over peace. But Troy's defense rested on more than Paris. Hector, Priam's eldest son and the city's greatest champion, stood ready to defend his home with honor and bravery. Unlike Paris, Hector was driven not by love or ambition, but by a sense of duty to his family and his people. He was a warrior and a prince, bearing the weight of Troy's future on his shoulders. Other defenders of Troy included Aeneas, a Trojan prince and son of Aphrodite, whose strength and lineage made him a force to be reckoned with. Sarpedon, the son of Zeus, was another formidable warrior, his heritage binding him to Troy's fate. Together, these heroes would fight to protect their homeland, knowing that the odds were against them, but determined to hold their ground. Yet the mortals were not alone in their struggle. High above on Mount Olympus, the gods observed, each with their own interests and allegiances. Zeus, king of the gods, watched with a neutral gaze, his immense power a reminder that he could tip the scales of the war at any moment. Hera, fierce and vindictive, stood firmly with the Greeks, determined to see Troy fall. Athena, goddess of wisdom and war, also favored the Greeks, her strategic mind drawn to their side, while her long-standing grudge against the Trojans fueled her resolve. Poseidon, lord of the seas, sided with the Greeks as well, his ancient bitterness toward Troy unforgotten. But other gods had a different allegiance. Apollo, god of the sun, lent his light to the Trojans, standing by them through their darkest hours. Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty, fiercely protected Paris and Troy, for it was her promise that had sparked the conflict. And thus, mortals and immortals alike stood at the brink of war, a battle not just for land or power, but for honor, vengeance, and glory. Across Greece, an alliance of kings assembled their forces, gathering on the shores of Aulis. Hundreds of ships filled the harbors, carrying warriors from every corner of the Greek world, a storm of bronze and iron ready to descend upon Troy. At Troy, the Trojans prepared their defenses, their golden walls fortified, their courage steeled for the battle to come. The Trojan War would not be a swift battle. It would rage for 10 long years, claiming heroes, kings, and sons. It would test loyalty and bravery, expose the frailties of men and gods, and echo through the ages. This was a war that would shape the destiny of both mortals and deities alike. A war where honor and betrayal, love and wrath, would collide on the blood-stained fields of Troy. And as the sails unfurled, as the Greek armada set forth, as the gods watched with eager eyes, the Trojan War began. A war like no other, a story that would be told and retold across generations, a tale of greatness and ruin.
Hey everyone, before we jump back into the story, I want to give a huge shout out to all of our returning subscribers. Thank you for being part of this journey. Your support means the world, and it keeps us inspired to bring you more epic tales. For those who are new here, don't miss out on the adventure. Go ahead and subscribe now so you never miss a beat. And for everyone watching, remember to like, comment, and share your thoughts below. Your engagement not only helps grow this amazing community, but also lets us know you're enjoying the journey as much as we are.
All right, let's take a quick moment. I see you. Yes, you, the one who just hit that subscribe button. Thank you for joining the adventure. Now, as we dive into epic tales, mythical battles, and legends from the past, you're officially on board, and I couldn't be happier to have you along. And, wait a second, you. Yes, you who's still thinking about it. Go on. Tap that subscribe button. Don't miss out on the next adventure waiting for us. Trust me, you won't want to be the one hearing about it from others. So let's keep exploring history together. Thanks everyone. Now the battle began. The day dawned heavy and gray as the Greek fleet, hundreds of ships strong, set sail toward Troy. The gods watched from Mount Olympus, torn between pride and dread, for they knew this war would be no ordinary clash. It would be a test of human will, love, honor, and divine favor. On board the ships, Agamemnon stood with a hardened resolve, casting his gaze over the horizon, where the walls of Troy loomed in the distance, golden and impenetrable. Beside him was Menelaus, his heart burning with the pain of betrayal and the unquenchable fire of vengeance. This was a journey to reclaim honor, to return Helen, his beloved wife, stolen by Paris, the charming prince of Troy. Yet this war was fated to be long and costly, for Troy was no ordinary city. Guarded by walls built by the gods themselves, Troy was under the protection of King Priam, a wise and noble ruler whose sons, Hector and Paris, stood ready to defend it. Priam, though aged, was resolute, knowing his city faced the fury of all Greece. Hector, Troy's greatest warrior, had already accepted his duty, though his heart was heavy with the knowledge of what was to come. Unlike Paris, who had taken Helen out of passion, Hector was bound by honor and loyalty. The weight of the war lay squarely on his shoulders. As the Greek ships reached the shore, Achilles, the greatest of Greek heroes, disembarked with an intensity that seemed to shake the earth. With his divine armor glowing like molten gold, he strode onto the beach, his gaze fierce and unyielding. Achilles fought for glory, not just victory. Born of the sea nymph Thetis and a mortal king, he carried within him the spark of the divine, a relentless desire to leave a legacy, to be remembered as the greatest warrior to ever walk the earth. And so the siege of Troy began. The Greek forces attacked the city with all their might, but the walls of Troy held strong. Day after day, year after year, battles erupted outside the city gates, with Greek and Trojan warriors clashing in a storm of bronze and blood. Hector became a pillar of strength for the Trojans, defending the city tirelessly, even as he saw friends and comrades fall beside him. For the Greeks, the absence of Achilles in the early years of the war was a heavy burden, for his pride kept him from the front lines. Agamemnon, their leader, had insulted him, taking his captive, Briseis, and in response, Achilles withdrew his mighty myrmidons, leaving the Greek forces weakened. During Achilles' absence, the war tilted in favor of the Trojans, and Hector seized the opportunity, leading his forces to drive the Greeks back to their own ships. With relentless courage and skill, Hector shattered the Greek line, scattering them with each thrust of his spear. The Greeks began to despair, realizing they could not win without Achilles. Yet, within their ranks, Odysseus, cunning and resourceful, rose to the occasion. Though not as powerful as Achilles, Odysseus's mind was sharper than any blade, and he wove plans to delay and regroup the Greeks, keeping them fighting while he and the other leaders sought a way to bring Achilles back. Meanwhile, the gods were anything but silent. Athena, with her loyalty to the Greeks, influenced the battles, lending strength to Diomedes and Odysseus. Hera, the queen of the gods, fueled the Greeks with courage, despising Troy for Paris's choice to favor Aphrodite in the divine beauty contest. On the Trojan side, Apollo, the god of the sun, cast his protective light over Hector, bolstering his spirit in every clash. Aphrodite, too, sheltered Paris and Troy, standing by her promise to protect the lovers whose union had ignited the war. And Zeus, the king of gods, maintained a careful balance, ensuring fate would unfold as it was meant to, knowing that both Greeks and Trojans had a part to play. As the years wore on, despair gripped the Greek camp. But then came a turning point, a tragic twist of fate that would alter the course of the war. Patroclus, beloved friend of Achilles, saw the suffering of the Greeks and begged his friend to return to battle. When Achilles refused, Patroclus, desperate to inspire the Greeks, took Achilles' armor and led the Myrmidons into battle, hoping to rally the Greeks by pretending to be the mighty hero. The ruse worked. The Trojans fell back, thinking Achilles had returned. But fate had other plans, for in the heat of battle, Patroclus came face to face with Hector. Believing he was facing Achilles, Hector engaged Patroclus, and after a fierce fight, the young warrior fell. The loss of Patroclus was a blow that pierced Achilles' heart, breaking through the walls of pride and anger he had built. Overcome by grief and rage, Achilles returned to the battlefield, donning armor freshly forged by Hephaestus himself. His grief fueled him, and his wrath was a storm of unmatched ferocity. The earth trembled beneath his steps, and the Trojans quaked at the sight of him, for now they faced the full force of his vengeance. Achilles cut through the Trojan ranks, his spear finding its mark in soldier after soldier, his shield an unbreakable fortress. His only thought was of Hector, the man who had slain his closest friend. At last, they met outside the gates of Troy, two champions, two embodiments of honor and duty, bound by fate to clash. Their battle was a sight to behold, fierce and relentless. But in the end, Achilles' rage proved stronger. He struck down Hector, and in his grief and fury, he dishonored the Trojan hero's body, dragging it behind his chariot around the walls of Troy. The fall of Hector cast a deep shadow over Troy, for now their greatest defender was gone. King Priam, driven by the love of a father, approached Achilles in the dead of night, risking his life to beg for the return of his son's body. Achilles, moved by Priam's courage and sorrow, softened, returning Hector's body so that Troy might mourn. Yet the end of Hector did not bring peace. The Greeks, now in their 10th year of war, grew desperate. Odysseus, ever cunning, devised a final, daring plan, the Trojan horse. The Greeks built a massive wooden horse, hollow inside, and left it as an offering, retreating to their ships as if in surrender. The Trojans, believing the Greeks had abandoned the war, brought the horse into their city, rejoicing in what they thought was victory. That night, as Troy slept, Odysseus and a band of warriors emerged from the horse, opening the gates to the waiting Greek forces. A silent, deadly wave swept over Troy. Fires blazed, swords struck, and the city that had stood tall for a decade fell in a single night. King Priam, the wise ruler, was struck down. Paris, whose love had begun the war, met his end, and the great city of Troy burned. Only Aeneas, son of Aphrodite, managed to escape, destined to carry the legacy of Troy forward. For those Greeks who survived, victory was hollow, for they too had lost much. Achilles would meet his fate soon after, felled by an arrow guided by Apollo and shot by Paris. The gods themselves mourned the fall of heroes, and the weight of lives taken by pride and vengeance. As dawn rose over the ruins of Troy, the world had changed forever. Those who had sought glory found only the ashes of a broken city. Those who had sought love were left with grief. And the gods, looking down, saw that even their immortal hearts were touched by the toll of the Trojan War. Odysseus would wander for years, cursed to face trials on the seas as a price for his cunning. The sons of Troy would scatter, bearing the memories of their city with them, and the tales of the war would live on, an eternal reminder of the cost of hubris, pride, and the quest for honor. The Trojan War was not simply the fall of a city, it was the fall of an era, a story that would echo across time. Achilles' name would be remembered as the greatest of warriors, Hector as the noble defender, and Troy as the city that fell for love. And thus the gods and mortals alike left their marks upon the world, bound forever by a story of war, heroism, and the eternal struggle between fate and free will.